Hey guys, Tom here from the Investing with Tom YouTube channel. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here and enjoy today's video, be sure to hit subscribe down below. Today we're going to talk about two big strategies out there in the stock market. Growth investing, Peter Lynch style, and value investing, Warren Buffett and Ben Graham style. What do they mean? What are some common misconceptions about the two strategies? And what's best for you? Let's get into it. So first let's talk about growth investing. So growth investing is essentially putting money into companies where you expect to generate your returns based off the company's growing earnings over time. So what you're really hunting after are big increases in earnings year over year, and that's how you expect to generate your returns. So you're looking for companies like the Amazons of the world, the Googles of the world, the Alibabas of the world, really fast growing companies that over time are going to have earnings that go like this. Over time, growing earnings generally produce growing stock prices. That's not always the case, and we'll get into that in a sec. But that's essentially what you're hunting for. You're hunting for a couple of stocks that can generate really, really big returns. So if you've ever read Peter Lynch's book, One Up on Wall Street, if you don't know who Peter Lynch is, he's probably the most successful mutual fund manager of all time. He returned about 30% a year to investors over about a 15-year period. Massive returns, and basically his strategy was growth investing. So he wasn't afraid to pay up for companies and chase that big growth. He was looking for trends out there in the market and out there in the real world as well. One of his biggest successful investments was a company called Dunkin' Donuts. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with Dunkin' Donuts, but he saw those stores emerging in the early days of Dunkin' Donuts, jumped on that trend, and it turned into what he'd call a 10-bagger, which basically means a 10x on your money. So if you invest $1,000, it becomes $10,000 because the company's stock price at least has gone up 10 times. So that's 10-bagger, and that's generally what you're looking for as a growth investor. So obviously not all companies that you invest in as a growth investor are going to be 10-baggers. You're not going to hit it out of the park every time. So growth investors like Peter Lynch tend to own a lot of stocks. So they're chasing high earnings, and they also have lots of stocks. And there's a basic kind of reason for that. So growth investors are looking to hit it out of the park with a few stocks. They're not looking to win on every single pitch. They're looking to invest in pitches that look very promising, that they might have a lot of growth in the future. Possibly they've had a lot of growth in the past and that growth rate's picking up. So they're looking to pick a lot of those stocks that look like they have potential. They're willing to lose on a big majority of them, but they want to win massively on a small number of them. So if you can have 8 or 9 losers and one is the next Amazon or the next Apple or the next Facebook, you're going to do perfectly fine as a growth investor. So that's the growth investing strategy. That's the basic premise behind it. Let's get into some of the potential downfalls of growth investing and some of the things you've got to watch out for as well. So in my mind, there's two main downfalls of a growth investing strategy. And the first one is that you can overpay. You can overpay for a company. So you may have heard Warren Buffett say something along these lines before, and that is that it's easy to turn a great company into a poor investment if you pay too much for it. And that's a common kind of trap out there for growth investors. So oftentimes when you're chasing growth and you're looking for companies with high potential to increase their earnings over time, you're going to be looking at companies that have quite a high PE ratio. They're going to be paying a high multiple of their current earnings a lot of times because investors are expecting a lot of growth in future. So there's high PE ratios, there's high price to book ratios, there's high price to sales ratios. Basically the stock's expensive, very expensive oftentimes, just looking at current year's earnings. So what you really need for this stock to do well over time is for the company to continue to grow those earnings. If you pay a huge price for earnings that don't grow, you're going to do very poor on that investment, and that's something that growth investors definitely have to watch out for. So even if you do overpay for a company, or what I'd consider kind of overpaying for a company up front, if growth is massive, over time you're going to do very well. But what happens a lot of times with growth investors is they'll overpay, they'll buy the Netflix and the weed stocks of the world at peak cycle. We saw this, the most dramatic example of this was back in 2000, 99, 2000, in the tech bubble. People were expecting massive growth in technology, but they overpaid hugely, and we had stocks like Amazon come down 90% from their peaks. So be careful of overpaying for companies. They're going to have to grow very, very well, and if they don't grow well, you can have a lot of downside. And that is actually number two. So the second downside of growth investing is actually downside itself. So unlike value investing, as we'll see in a sec, growth investing has a lot of potential downside. So if you're paying a high amount for these companies up front and they don't hit those growth expectations, you can find yourself in situations where those companies drop a lot. We saw it with Facebook last year. They dropped around 20% in a day on poor earnings. We've seen it with lots of other companies in the past. Again, the high-flying stocks like the Netflixes of the world, if they don't have really, really good earnings, or at least meet expectations on earnings, we can have big things drop away. Or the stock drop away a large amount. So lots of downside. Watch out for overpaying for stocks, but growth investing is a pretty good strategy if you can pull it off. If you can find those next big companies. But it takes a lot of effort. There is definitely some risk involved with growth investing. It's not quite the risk-averse strategy that I consider value investing to be. So that's kind of an introduction to growth investing. Let's get into value investing, and then I'll give you my 2 cents on what I think is the best strategy. Okay, value investing. So this is the strategy that was made famous by Ben Graham and his probably best student of all time, or definitely his best student of all time, which was Warren Buffett, the greatest investor that's ever lived, in my humble opinion and the opinion of many others. So value investing, what does it mean? Essentially, it's the art of buying, the way that I like to think about it is it's the art of buying $1 of value for a price of 50 cents. So value investors strongly believe that price does not equal value. We're out there looking for bargains in the market. We're looking for inefficiencies, situations where a company that has a higher value has a low price attached to it in the market for whatever reason. So often we're following events. So a good example would be a couple of years ago with Chipotle Mexican Grill. They had the E. coli scare. Their stock price tanked down about 50 or 60% from memory. And that was sort of a short to medium term problem in the company. It wasn't going to affect the company forever. So it created a situation where the underlying value of the company was much, much higher than the price in which it was selling for in the market. So that's essentially what value investing is. It's trying to buy a dollar for 50 cents. So there's quite a few misconceptions out there about value investing, so I'll just run through some of them quickly. The main one I would say is that value investors are typically perceived, at least, as people that buy very low PE, low price to book, and low price to sales companies. So basically the opposite of a growth investor. They're looking for basically cheap companies, and that was definitely the case in, I guess, sort of the older school value investing. That was definitely the approach of the likes of Ben Graham and even the early Warren Buffett, was to buy those really beaten down and cheap companies. Basically the reason being is that in sort of the Depression era investing and in the early days of Warren Buffett's career, you could buy companies so cheaply that if the company decided to stop business tomorrow, pay off all their debts, sell everything they own, and pay out any cash that's sitting in their accounts to investors, that investors would actually receive more than the current stock was trading for. So they could buy the stock for $10 a share, and if the company liquidated everything, shut up shop, they could pay out $15 a share, for example, to investors. Massively undervalued companies, extremely cheap. It didn't really matter the quality of the company at all, because regardless, these people were going to do really, really well. So that is old school value investing. I think value investing has changed a lot in probably the last 20 or 30 years. So I'm going to spend a couple of minutes just going through some of the more modern value investing differences. So that's old school value investing. New school value investing. So there's definitely some themes that have hung around. It's still trying to buy $1 for 50 cents. I don't think that will ever change. That's basically what value investing is finding a difference between price and value and taking advantage of that. So buying into fear around companies and selling into greed around companies where the price exceeds the value. So that's what value investing is at its core. But in terms of modern value investing, so we're not really buying the low PE, low price to book, low price to sales companies anymore. What we're instead looking for is to buy $1 for 50 cents. So this may be a really crappy company. This may be a really good company. We've seen it in recent years with Warren Buffett starting to buy into Apple. 20 or 30 years ago, he was buying, or maybe even longer now, he was buying Coca-Cola, American Express, Gillette, really high quality, well-known companies. And he was actually having to pay up for those. He wasn't paying less than the cash that they had on their books. He was actually paying multiples of earnings, multiples of book value, over and above what he'd done in the past. And there's a couple of fundamental reasons for that. So if a company is earning $1, say, per share, and its earnings stay consistent at $1 per share forever, that company has a lower value than if those earnings grow over time. So if those earnings go up, and you're confident that those earnings are going to go up over time, you can pay more upfront. This is worth much. This growing company is worth a lot more than a company with stagnant earnings. It has a higher value. It's not just attractive to growth investors. It's attractive to value investors because the value grows over time. So Warren Buffett realized this, I guess, in sort of the 70s or 80s, and he started to buy higher quality companies, and that allowed him to do very, very well over time. There's a couple of real big advantages to buying higher quality companies versus lower quality companies, even if both are sort of 50-cent dollars, and I'll probably get into that in another video. That's probably a topic for another day. But essentially, we're looking for discrepancies between price and value. Doesn't necessarily have to be the low PE companies of the world. You can buy the Facebooks and the Chipotles and the Apples and the Amazons of the world. What you have to have confidence in, though, is cash flow. So valuing a business, so working out whether it is $1 for 50 cents or it's $1 for $1.50, actually figuring out the value of a company is tricky. So it's much easier to do when the companies don't change a lot, because what value investors look at is they're forecasting out into the future, essentially, how much cash can this business produce and return to me as an owner of that business over time. And if the amount of cash it returns is growing over time, I'm willing to pay more upfront for that business. What is tricky is often in these high flyer, high growth companies, it's difficult to actually work out what those cash flows are going to be. If you're buying Netflix or if you're buying Amazon 10 or 15 years ago or even today, it's very I'm going to be very skeptical if you can tell me exactly what their cash flows are going to be over the next 10 years. Those are very difficult businesses to forecast because they're changing so much, they're growing so quickly, and you know, the Teslas and Netflixes of the world, Netflix is losing a lot of money at the moment. Tesla is only just becoming profitable, so it's going to be very tricky to figure out what those businesses are actually going to produce in the future. And therefore it's tricky as a value investor to put an accurate number on the value. And that's often why you see those stocks being quite volatile. So we are very concerned about cash flow. It's the exact reason why Warren Buffett didn't really get caught up in the tech bubble around the year 2000. It's the very reason why value investors tend to end up holding a lot of cash towards the end of business cycles like they are today. You know, prices are high relative to value. The big high-flying stocks out there are tricky to forecast. So that's why value investors, probably as a generalization, tend to be in slightly more predictable businesses. So they're in the Coca-Colas of the world, they're in the Procter and Gambles of the world. They're not always looking at the kind of high-flying companies, but if they're confident about what they think those companies can do over time, they certainly will be. So what's best? Honestly, it's personal preference. If you've watched this channel before, and even probably just watching this video, you'll figure out that I'm a value investor. So for me, value investing has been the strategy that has the biggest returns over the long term. It has all of the benefits potentially of growth investing, other than we sort of put a lot of companies in the too hard basket because we can't figure out the cash flows. That's probably the big downside of value investing, is we miss a lot of the big winners, but we don't have a lot of losers. If we're buying a dollar for 50 cents, there's not a lot of downside. If it goes down to 40 cents or 30 cents on the dollar, we're just going to load up and buy more. So that's a really massively powerful strategy of the value investing kind of mindset. We don't have often huge winners, but we don't have many losers. We're very consistent, can generate high returns over a long period of time. If you're buying a dollar for 50 cents and it doubles, then it's kind of at fair value. So you can generate high rates of return quite quickly when those inefficiencies in the market correct. So that's my personal preference. Really keen to hear what your guys' personal preference is. I know there's a lot of different strategies out there. So are you a value person? Are you a growth person? Are you a mix? Are you sort of the growth at a reasonable price type investor? That's probably where I'd sit myself, actually. Growth at a reasonable price, tending towards value, I guess. So let me know your thoughts on this video. Where do you sit in the grand scheme of investors? Are you value? Are you growth? Keen to hear from you below. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to drop me a like and hit subscribe. But that's all from me now, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.